Hello everyone, we're going to talk about space battles today and in general naval combat, something that's been missing from Total War for a certain amount of time now, and obviously a lot of people are expecting to see back with the brand new War Core engine. This is something that's been touched upon very briefly by Creative Assembly. They had one of their senior management pop onto a stream, and the answer was not at the moment, maybe in the future. They definitely want it, which doesn't really mean that it's going to happen, and then quite a lot of deflection. I think it's important to note a few things. One, anything that's really said right now isn't really locked in. So like they talked about ambient battles, and then Josh, Creative Assembly's host for these streams, said, well, maybe it makes it into game, maybe it doesn't, which it seems a bit weird to talk about something that just might not make it in. The problem there is it turns into a original No Man's Sky situation, which eventually got there, or just in general Bethesda. You know, every time Todd Howard opens his mouth, it's like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, and it doesn't. It gets people's hopes up, and it becomes a bit of an issue there. Now, I really want space combat, and it's not just space combat. I want naval combat for Med 3. I think that's incredibly important. There's an active part of warfare which is just missing. Now, I can understand why Creative Assembly decided not to do naval combat for Total War Warhammer, so the fantasy game, purely because yeah, I played Man of War back in the day. That was the original tabletop game setting for the naval stuff, and it was incredibly unbalanced. Not every race was represented, and I mean, you have to put it into perspective, right? Imagine a Norscan longship. So, like, for those who don't understand Warhammer Fantasy too much or haven't delved in there too much, you've got a Viking longship, which is essentially just a Norscan ship, versus, like, yeah, a proper siege, steam-powered juggernaut essentially for the dwarfs, or a big ass galleon for the Bretonnians. There is a lot of stuff there, and that's not easy to balance. I've seen the argument saying, well, there is no balance when it comes to Warhammer. And yeah, that's true. You know, Total War Warhammer and Warhammer Tabletop sometimes. I mean, yeah. Some units are horrendously overpowered, some units are just completely useless, but you can't have that for naval combat, especially if the world is quite large. So Creative Assembly's interpretation of naval warfare in Total War Warhammer at least was focused around originally just auto-resolving, so if your army sucked and you just had like an expeditionary force, that was gone, or now it's island battles, which is still not ideal, but hey, at least it means that your Doomstack can at least get some fights in and not have to worry about auto-resolving and losing a full-on force. I mean, most people just completely avoid the ocean if possible because there is just like awful pirate factions, and really, thanks to sea lanes and stuff, you can spend pretty much a whole campaign without really being in the ocean too much, because it'll just teleport you to the other side of the world and you can just make landfall. I mean, not that you need to go to the other side of the world, barring some of the factions because of their win achievements and stuff. In most cases, you're going to be stuck in your starting location. You're going to expand a little bit, and then you're going to start a brand new campaign. At least that's how I interpret it, with how, you know, some streamers play, and just in general conversations about campaign that you can find online. That's not to say that Creative Assembly didn't want to do naval battles. It's pretty public knowledge that there are unit cards in the game files, which kind of sucks that nothing came out of it, but it would have been cool. I think that's the main thing. But you have to take into account certain things. One, Warscape as an engine was practically dying, and it feels like it's on constant life support, hence the consistent amount of bugs getting fixed and then returning, or just not getting fixed at all despite, you know, big drama happening. Two, the amount of races in-game with more and more races happening meant that if naval battles were going to happen, it would either require its own DLCs, or the normal DLCs introducing those races would have actually had to be much smaller just to account for the naval warfare. There's not a lot of ships even designed for all the races too. That would have required a lot of extra work, which I get why they didn't do it. There's a fair amount of those unit cards. The only problem is I can't find a lot of them because most of them are on Imgur, and I've just found out recently that, yeah, that's been banned in the United Kingdom. Or, well, they decided to pull out from UK-based IPs because of that. I don't know, the UK. If Creative Assembly ended up doing naval combat for Warhammer 3, it would have to end up costing like a proper full game. It would have basically been Warhammer 4. And I'm pretty certain that people wouldn't want to pay like £60 for a DLC, which likely would be incredibly unbalanced. And let's be honest, that probably wouldn't be too fun. But looking towards 40k, we do know that naval combat is actually quite well, prevalent, really. Not only with just lore tidbits, because it does happen a lot in many, many novels. Obviously, there was a much more enjoyed tabletop game known as Gothic, and there were video games. Battlefield Gothic is still some of the best interpretation for naval combat that you'll ever get. It's so fun. Honestly, Gothic 2 is something that if you haven't played, you should play. I think that's what a lot of people want, or close enough to Total War Warhammer 40K space battles, which would be very difficult, I think, for Creative Assembly to do, but it depends really on how War Core Engine works. This is going to be a system that they're going to do once, and then maybe never again, unless those Star Wars leaks were true. Which, at this point, you never know, man. Because there's not really that many space-themed or sci-fi themed games that Creative Assembly could do for Total War, so it is going to require an investment knowing that it's a one-off. Whereas for Med 3, if they do naval warfare there, typical cannon fire, wooden ships, all that jazz, well, that can be reused in future Total War titles. Hell, if they decide to do World War I, which was rumored at one point, and kind of suspect that that was actually showcased a little bit in the 25th anniversary clips that they were doing for the destructible terrain, yeah, they could use still the basic framework of that to do the metal warships. It's something that will pay for itself with time. The benefit that 40K does have is that a lot of the frames for separate ships will be reusable. In fact, a lot of ships will be reusable through different factions, because like the Storm Raven and stuff like that is reusable by different factions. It's a basic flyer, but that could also be used on like flying battles and stuff like that, depending on how they interpret this stuff. Maybe it's just we'll get flyers and the flyers will be down there, but don't expect like an Imperial Titan class warship, right? Unless they actually do the full-on space battles. But roster-wise, we've seen ships, right? Gothic itself had a lot of factions done, and then we saw with Battlefield Gothic other interpretations for like Necron ships and Tyranid ships, Chaos ships. Well, Chaos ships had models too. There were a lot of ships done. They tried to do Naval Combat again, Games Workshop, but that kind of went to 30k instead, because it's easier to do 30k. That means that everyone's just basically got the same bullshit, right? Why make like 20 factions worth of different ships when you can put it in the Horus Heresy and have 20 factions, but all of them using the same stuff? They don't have to design new models. Now we have to be realistic here. If Naval Combat happens for 40k, it's not going to happen anytime soon. In terms of like, a DLC, likely it would happen near the end of the lifespan of the title. And this is a big if it actually happens. They've said that they want to do it, but that doesn't mean anything. And it's likely going to be a very expensive DLC. You have to take into account how many factions are already available. Like there's 4 factions confirmed, right? Eldar, Guard, Orcs, and Space Marines. There's going to be a lot more. Creative Assembly will take advantage of the fact that races are going to be everywhere, with new races and dedicated factions happening fairly often now for the 40k setting. It does seem like Games Workshop is pushing up there quite quickly, despite the fact that, factions are releasing halfway through. Like there was only a second wave of the Votan recently, and not gonna lie, the World Eaters feel incredibly anemic. Let's say that there's like maybe 15 to 20 unique races by the end of it, not including like all the sub-factions and stuff that is likely going to have like mixed units. So like if a ship is available for one, it might be available for 3 others. We could see a pretty expensive thing. It would be a brand new format. I could not imagine a cheap DLC for this, or a normal price. I could see it more expensive than, say, for example, Tides of Torment or a full-on race pack. Because it's not the fact that, some ships here and there. It would have to be a lot of ships for everyone, right? There needs to be a unique roster, and it needs to be for everyone at the very beginning. You can't just start doing naval combat packs for, like, one or the other, Everyone needs to have it at once. This is where my concerns about naval combat not happening are actually coming from. Now, Creative Assembly did skirt through space battles for about 2 minutes, and it's not even 2 minutes of space battle conversation. It was just like kind of deflecting the conversation quite a bit, which does make me believe that it's just not going to happen. And the thing is, I do feel like that would be a massive shame. I do feel like space battle should have been introduced from the very beginning. Like, have a Space Marine force, Storm Ravens, blah, 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 blah. Start off from there, and with DLC, start introducing more. When a race pack comes out, have like the force of a race, and then introducing the rest. And I don't know what their plans are for this game, because it does feel like this title is going to be a one and done, as in there's not going to be a Total War 40K 2 or 3. It's just going to be built up from the first game, and that's it. And I think that's probably the smartest idea. 10 years of that would be more consistency and would stop all the issues that happened with Warhammer 3, for example, the launch being so abysmal. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over their clip, and I'm just going to kind of dissect through it, just so we can talk about it in a realist sense. I'm not trying to be a doomer here, I'm just trying to be realistic in terms of how Creative Assembly have spoken in the past about certain things. Just a heads up too, their audio is a little fucked because they have some like fan playing in the background. Hopefully that's better. But again, it was their first stream of the refurbished office, so like no faults there. It would have been nice to have that being tested, but I guess, you know, Creative Assembly like to do everything kind of last moment-ish. It's been seen before. So yeah, I mean, it's teething issues. Hopefully it'll be better. They're supposed to be doing some sort of stream soon for Med 3, I think they confirmed in this video actually. So hopefully it's better for them, because like the feedback was jarring.
Do we have space battles?
Do we have space battles? Well, I'd say that it is very lore appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have space battles? Let me say this. Space battles is something that I want, something that the teams want. Is it going to be there for launch? Maybe not.
Okay, we're stopping already here. So maybe not. That's something that, again, means that they are conceptualizing stuff. But just because it's been made into concept, which they actually mentioned that some stuff that goes into concept never actually makes it into game or a full game altogether. Like, we've all heard rumors about cancelled Total War titles and cancelled Total War DLCs. Whether they're true or not, we'll have to wait and see. They're going to be concepting this stuff. Anyway, regardless, because it's always the idea of, what if we do it? Hell, we've seen concept art for stuff that has only just made it into the game. The Chimera is, what, 3-4 years old in terms of concept art? Well, from the release of the art book, and it's only just recently made it into the game. I speak to devs from a fair amount of different companies, and you'd be surprised how stuff gets conceptualized with a just in case, or it would be cool to do this, and that's it. Art has to be done super, super early, and I'm imagining that it has to be done even sooner when you're dealing with Games Workshop, just so everything can get done. And then even then, stuff might not get approved until the last moment. Like, for example, actually the best example here would be the Zangors for Shadows of Change, which we've seen concept art of them having beaks, and then they didn't have beaks. So it's clear that stuff changes very drastically during development process. I wouldn't be surprised if they were drawing up concepts for 40k when they were also trying to get Warhammer 3 up and running, you know? It's just, they have to plan this ahead. And you know, we've all heard those rumors that Creative Assembly have like a 10-year plan. I like to think it's like a 1-week plan and they just kind of make it up as they go along sometimes. But realistically, yeah, it has to be some sort of 10-year plan.
I think we've got a lot of new stuff that we're working on that we're trying to get there, to get in the game. Maybe it makes it, maybe it doesn't. It will definitely be there eventually.
Yeah.
When is a big question, but I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that people want.
Yeah.
So here we go with maybe it makes it for launch, maybe it doesn't. So there might actually be some plans there, or they're just trying to see if they have enough time. This depends on when this game releases, by the way. A lot of people are thinking this year. I'm honestly thinking 2027. I'm being very, very realistic here. They are going to likely take this time here because like there's a lot of factors with 40k, and they need to make this one work, especially with the volatile fan base that 40k has. What strikes me out here is like, oh yeah, you know, it'll definitely be there eventually. The wording of it will definitely be there eventually doesn't strike me up with too much confidence, I might say, because it's flat out saying, look, it's going to be there, but you know, plans do change. And this is something that, again, I spoke about earlier in this video. There's talk about stuff that may or may not be there, like ambient battles. Is it actually going to be there, or is it just like, oh, let's keep the hype going because they've seen that if there's no space battle confirmation, people are just going to get mad. People are going to lose interest in the game. It feels a little bit like, oh, we're just going to say yes and then people will forget. Because a lot of times people do forget about issues when it comes to Total War. I mean, you know, the whole Category 1 situation for the AI stuff, and then nothing was really fixed. It was just like a Band-Aid, which seems like it's kind of breaking already. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's taking it as confirmation that it's going to be there at some point. But the realist in me, and just trying to be very realistic here, means Todd Howard, you know?
Because 40, I've read like 40 books, and that's not even scratching the surface.
That's half of the horror series.
I mean, it's right. So it's just trying to get everything that's lore centric is going to be really tough. But what we are excited to do is to show our work and talk about it. This summer we're gonna we are planning on doing a very public dive into some of our campaign work.
Yep.
And I definitely want us to find a moment in the relative future on how we can show more of our battles, maybe even stream them.
Yeah.
So expect more information for sure.
Yeah.
I know that people really want space battles. I do too.
So that was technically what most people consider politician talk, right? Deflecting and going, hey, look, we've got campaign stuff and battle stuff coming soon, which I'm pretty excited to see. That stuff is always good to see, especially brand new engine. We need to see how everything is going to work. And I've left that full clip there so people don't say like, oh, you're editing stuff. But now it's not. It's definitely happening. It's like, now it's like, oh, people want space battles. I do too. There's a stark difference between it's going to happen eventually to I want this to happen. Like, I'm definitely going to have a protein shake after I finish recording this because, yeah, healthy, blah, blah, blah. I want a kebab, though.
But I think we see a lot of that debate back and forth across our community of how are they going to make the game feel Total War and those foundational elements are the most important bit to get right first, right?
That's
so
right.
real-time space battles will be fantastic, but they're only fantastic in addition to an already incredible Total War experience.
Well, this is kind of I'm glad you said that because this is sort of the center of the argument about a lot of these things. If the foundation, if the structure of our game isn't really fun all by itself, then the additions are almost irrelevant. Yeah. So.
Okay, I will completely agree here with both Josh and Roger. There are certain things that need to be done prior to space battles. If space battles ever happen. It's still a big if. This still needs to feel like a Total War game, and yeah, I do have my concerns, I'm not gonna lie. The whole thing about consoles and shit like that, it does feel like maybe they're gonna have to dumb down Total War. They've said that they haven't, but there's many devs who have said, oh yeah, it's not gonna be dumbed down, and then it ends up being dumbed down. There's this talk, for example, about like World of Warcraft going to consoles. Trust me, this is relevant. It's something that may or may not happen. But what's been happening there is classes are basically losing out on their rotation quite a lot. Like I think my rotation nowadays is maybe 4 spells for my chosen specs, which is ridiculous. It feels like I'm just having to have my hand on 4 buttons and that's it. Which always worries me when PC games get ported to console because they have to dumb stuff down. We're going to have to wait and see, but it does seem like they've got their priorities right? It needs to be a Total War game first before they start adding in stuff. It's a shame, and I think that everyone kind of echoes my sentiment here, it's a shame that naval battles, yes, space battles are still technically a naval battle, isn't part of the main formula of Total War games anymore, though.
We have really fun stuff that are in the game now. We have stuff in the game that aren't fun at all.
Yeah.
I saw some people panicking about that when Roger says like, oh, there's stuff that isn't fun in the game at the moment. That's perfectly fine. It's just being developed. So it's like when they introduce a mechanic and it just sucks at the moment. And this is stuff that we'll never really see because it's just like, yeah, the concept to game and then refinement. He's just talking about refinement here. A friend of mine messaged me going, well, why is he saying there's something not fun? It's like, dude, don't worry. Like, that's just how it is. I've seen a few games from other developers in like alpha state, and like it happens. Like when I played Dawn of War 4, for example, there were some things which were just like not animated or not textured, and I could easily talk about those, but it was like, yeah, it's early game dev. It's fine.
We're working through that. That's game development. That's how it goes. And at the moment, space battles is not the focus. The focus is making sure that we're going to get something that's awesome.
And I know that even if, and I'd say most likely there aren't real-time space battles there is still a look at how to represent ship warfare itself.
Oh,
if it's not a real-time.
I mean, the game feels like you're in space.
Yep.
So there's no doubt about that. The game feels like you are roaming the galaxy and coming out of the warp and doing all the fun stuff that is both awesome and horrifying.
Yep.
in the 40K universe.
I feel like some examples would have been great here, because like just some like visual examples. This is something I'm just not keen on with these blogs live streams. It would have been nice to just have like a little bit of a clip or a little bit of a screenshot just to kind of show what they mean by that, because I feel like that would have been just nice. I mean, they technically spoke about space battles for about, let's just say 45 seconds throughout this 2.5 minute clip. But yeah, what I'm expecting is if there is any space battles whatsoever, it's likely going to end up being island battles. It's how I expect it, which is still better than nothing at this point. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I'm going to save this clip for, I don't know, 10 years down the line, unless the giant EMP takes us all out. Or the crab people, you never know. Realistically, and I hope to be proven wrong, I really do, I don't think space battles are going to happen. I think it's one of those things of like they want to do it, but it's just not going to happen. That's the interpretation I got when it came to the whole conversation regarding, well, practically everything in here. Seeing from what's happened in the past, how much potential work needs to happen, and the potential cost. Nobody's going to pay like £60 for that, and it wouldn't be realistic to have multiple DLCs for naval battles, because then some factions would get screwed over from the very beginning. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below to start a bit of a discussion. I just wanted to talk about naval battles today because I feel like that's kind of important to talk about right now. Do you think naval combat is going to happen, or do you think it's just going to be nope, and they'll just go and say, hey, we tried, but it wasn't the budget, or there wasn't time. Here's the next brand new shiny thing. Have a good one, guys, and I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Bye.